So one of the things that we're learning more and more about the brain is that you don't activate just one part of the brain. You activate networks of the brain. And when it comes to attention, you can think of sort of two main attentional networks in the brain. One of them is called top-down attention network. So this is the attentional network you need when you decide that you need to focus on something and you need to give your concentration to. A lot of video games don't really tap into that network as much as the other network. The other network is sort of a bottom-up network. And that is more activated by the deeper structures of your brain. And that is the part of your brain that alerts you to something that may be happening around. So video games are really, really good at using, some would even say, hijacking the bottom-up network. So that is where sometimes there is a little bit of concern that lots and lots of video games, especially video games that are very much about shifting your attention somewhere else and not about really focusing in on one place, may kind of skew the balance a little bit. Video games are great because there's lots of sounds and there's alerts and there's colors and there's lots of things, and that activates your brain. That's what it was designed to do, is to sort of hold your attention. And if you're immersed in that kind of an environment for hour after hour after hour, your arousal threshold, the amount of stimulation your brain needs to get focused, might go up. So imagine a kid who's been playing Halo for hours and hours and hours, and then they go into a classroom where there's much less stimulation. There's a teacher at a blackboard talking, trying to get kids to look at a boring book. And it can be a challenge for kids to sort of be able to focus at that lower level of stimulation. For a lot of people, video games are very pleasurable, right? And when people do things that they really find rewarding, it activates another system in your brain, areas like the nucleus accumbens. It activates a neurotransmitter called dopamine that you've probably heard about. And this is a neurotransmitter that does a lot of really important brain functions, but it also can underlie various kinds of dependencies and addictions. And so things or substances that tend to be addictive tend to be really good at rapidly raising dopamine levels in the brain or of the brain. And it turns out that, some video games can do this, that video games are not necessarily going to turn some sweet little kid into a serial killer. And actually the link between video games and actual things like mass shootings, I mean, that level of violence, I think is not particularly strong. I don't think we can point at video games as the main culprit driving actual school violence. But there is evidence that that video games can sort of prime aggression, and kids who already may be prone to being a little aggressive may be the ones who are the most susceptible to it. These are the kind of things I think that give some people concern. Not that video games are the root of all evil, but that they have a potential to do harm.